Soldier, keep on marching on. Head down till the work is done. Waiting on that morning sun. Soldier, keep on marching on. Oh, oh,
Child, sit down and eat, my nana said as I put Kaleb's plate in front of him on the table. This will be the first time he actually had breakfast here. Today was Saturday, and he had taken off work so that we can go over Stormy and Shlomo's house for the Shabbat. I was kind of looking forward to this because I was really curious about him and Shlomo's relationship. How in the world did a guy like Shlomo, who I had considered a superhero since I was a very little girl, get involved with a gangster from the hood? Nah, I'm okay. You know I don't like eating in the morning. I picked up Eve's toast and smeared a little jelly on it. Nana looked at me. Breakfast is I cut her off, most important meal of the day, I finished for her. You tell me that every morning. And yet you still manage to skip it every morning. Kaleb's phone rang. Yeah, he said in the receiver as he forked a load of eggs in his mouth. I turned to the sink, getting ready to start the dishes. Monica. His deep, agitated voice came from behind me. I turned to look back at him, confused as to why he was talking to me and whoever it was he was on the phone with at the same time. Get your plate. Eat, was all he said before he continued explaining to the person on the phone why he wasn't coming into the shop on their busiest day of the week. I opened my mouth to tell him, you can't tell me what to do. But before I could say anything, he shot me with a look that made my hand fly to the nearest plate and pick it up. Now, eat, he snapped. He brought his big finger down on the table in front of my empty chair. Even the thunk of it screamed, don't mess with me right now, because I ain't in the mood. I didn't know if he was irritated with me or the person he was talking on the phone with, but either way, an agitated Kaleb is an intimidating thing. And I ain't no fool. You know, I've made it this far by learning how to pick my battles. I didn't want to look, but I could feel my nana's gaze drilling a hole in the side of my face. Hesitantly, I peeked over at her, and she had this little satisfied smirk on her face as she all of a sudden got real busy. Check this out, cutting her turkey bacon with a knife. I exhaled loud and ignorant before turning to the stove and piling food up on my plate. He may have intimidated me into eating, but you know what? I ain't have to like it. Nobody even cuts bacon with a knife, so you can stop pretending, I hissed at my nana, irritated with the look she had on her face. She had the nerve to pick up her coffee cup and take a sip, looking at me with a raised eyebrow, straight up Kermit the Frog style. I rolled my eyes at her and mean-mugged Kaleb, but he wasn't paying neither of us no never mind. The frown had intensified on his face. I pay you to handle these situations. Damn, y'all can't do shit. He caught himself, looking over at Nana. Nothing, without me there. Just leave the damn Malibu. I have to come in tomorrow and handle it. Oh, and Tony, make sure you don't call me again today. He hung up the phone and placed it angrily on the table. I must have been crazy to think I could be out the shop on a Saturday. That's the main reason I almost told Shalom I couldn't come through today. As he spoke, he piled his eggs and bacon up between his toast and took a massive bite, chewing angrily with his powerful jaws. Well now, the devil wouldn't be good at his job if he didn't do the best he could to stop you from keeping the Sabbath day holy. What? I paused and taken a bite out of my toast and looked at Nana surprised. What you know about the Sabbath day? She chuckled. You think you the only one Stormy and Shlomo been preaching to? But unlike your highness, I stopped for a minute and actually listened. I frowned as I chewed. What did she mean, unlike me? I listened. I mean, yeah, sure, I got busy and, it kind of got pushed to the back burner. But what black person born in this country didn't want to know where they came from? And I ain't gonna lie, I've been meaning to look further into some of the things Stormy told me. Like how the slaves that were brought here to America and the Caribbean was from a tribe called Igbo. And how the Igbo people were hated by the African tribes surrounding them because it was well known that they were different people with different customs. Which is why those surrounding tribes then helped the Muslims and the Europeans capture and take the Igbo people into slavery. When she told me that, I had remembered that Keturah and I had gone to the slave exhibit at the DuSable Museum and had read a real flyer that had been preserved since 1804. And sure enough, it read, Igbo men, women, and children for sale, proving what Stormy said to be true. But because I was always at work, the research I had planned on doing kind of got pushed to the side. Note to self. Find out about the Igbo and their customs. If that was the tribe we came from, then of course I wanted to learn all I could about them. Growing up in school, we learned about many different nations of people and their culture. And I often wondered why we were the only group of people whose history started with slavery. When I was a little girl, I thought that the first black person born had been born a slave. Then I learned that we were from Africa. But that only confused me more. Because there were so many different groups and tribes of people in Africa, I always wondered, which tribe did we belong to? And now that I had been forced by this bully to stop working, I might as well take advantage and find out all I could about the tribe our people came from. Eve climbed down out of her high chair and up into her father's lap. Goodness, she had taken to doing that more often. Nana's gaze was extra speculative as she looked at the two. I cleared my throat, drawing her attention away. So you believe what Stormy and Shlomo said about us being cursed? She shrugged. It makes sense to me. I've always wondered why we seem to end up at the bottom of the barrel, no matter how high we think we've climbed. Hell, you got people born in third world countries that say to themselves, it could be worse. We could have been born a nigger. She shook her head. In my day, we couldn't wait to run the race. We just wanted our fair chance. But what would end up happening is we were told to go stand at the starting line. Then somebody would come along and tie our shoelaces together. And when we would reach down and try to untie them, so we didn't trip and fall, we were hunted down and murdered because that was considered poor sportsmanship coming from a nigger. So we line on up and get ready to run that race anyway, knowing that it wasn't fair, while looking to the side at our white running mates. Now, of course, they'd have on their brand spanking new running shoes. And see, they running shoes weren't tied together like ours. They could stretch their legs out and run as fast and free as they wanted to. And if we fail, you better not say it was because your shoelaces was tied together. Because then they point their fingers at you and yell that you were just too lazy and too slow and just flat out too dumb to run the race. Although they didn't fall, tears came to her eyes as she spoke. She stared off into the distance, lost in her past. I look around at these people, and they would intentionally avoid looking down at my tied shoelaces. And no matter how hard I tried to show them, they would say, "Stop whining, nigga. You just want a handout. You don't want to run this race fair and square like the rest of us." One of those tears escaped her eyes. I've heard her stories of struggle my whole life. Even Madam Queen had told me how amazing of a dancer my grandmother had been, and how many times she was passed up simply because she was black.
Well, we've always had to be smarter, stronger, and wiser just to get to that starting line.
Kaleb, who had been silent as he listened to her, muttered. His earlier irritation had disappeared to be replaced by a look of reserve.
When Shlomo first told me our people were cursed, something resonated in me. I too often wondered how in the world black people were allowed to be treated this way. It seems as if we had some kind of hidden force holding us down. But the way in which it's done is so subtle. It's so calculated that it's outright brilliant.
He moved his knife away from Eve's reaching fingers before he continued.
Not much has changed since your day, Nana. Except for the fact that most of our youth, they don't even bother to run their race that will require them to win against all odds. Instead, most of them choose to run other races. Races where there's only a proverbial finish line, fed to us through music, videos, and black reality TV. But it's a trap with no winners. They're made to believe that they're lazy and stupid.
He shook his head, getting lost in his thoughts.
I know these guys. They're not lazy, and they're far from stupid. So why can't they rise?
Close your mouth, child, Nana said, putting her finger underneath my chin. I snapped my mouth shut without looking away from Kaleb. What the hell? I had never heard him speak this way. Oh my goodness, I think he had just turned me on. I picked up the newspaper he had been reading while I made breakfast and fanned myself. What the world? What kind of mob boss thought this way? He had been surprising me more and more each day. The other evening while we were eating dinner, Teeny brought a man by that was down on his luck, down and out. He came to Kaleb in tears, begging him for help out of a ditch he had unwisely dug him and his family. Kaleb listened patiently as the man explained how he wanted to get out of the dope game because he didn't want to go to jail. His family needed him, but he had a wife and 4 kids, and he could not afford to work at minimum wage and still take care of them.
What can you do?
Kaleb asked once the man was finished pouring his heart out to him. Instantly, he pepped up at Kaleb's words. Well, I got some training in carpentry. I'm not bad with the hammer and nail. Kaleb nodded and made one phone call, getting the man to interview the next day with somebody he knew that built houses. I had been surprised by his generosity. Never once did he degrade him or make him feel like he was less than a man. However, he did give, him what most people would consider something of a threat.
I'm putting my name out on the line for you. Don't tarnish my image,
was all he said. But the man was all smiles. He nodded his head, assuring him he will make him proud. Now, I ain't no nosy person. Observant at most. And one of the things I observed is that Kaleb's phone rang nonstop. I mean, the man literally had to turn it off when he sat down at the table to eat. But most of the calls are people looking for work, and I've never heard him turn anyone down, never, not once. He finds them something. If not working for him, then working for what he calls a good friend of his. He's like the godfather of the freaking hood. I was beginning to think that everything I originally thought about him was wrong. And maybe he had not ordered the hit on my brother after all. Amazingly, I haven't even asked the man if he did it or not. I just accused him of the crime. Oh my goodness. What if he hadn't done it? I mean, What if I had set him up for nothing and he was in fact innocent? And then to top it off, I treated him like complete trash upon his release. My hand flew to my mouth. Oh dear, yeah. I never even considered the fact that he could have been innocent.
Why are you looking at me like that?
He asked, pulling my plate that I had not touched in the last 10 minutes in front of him, where he began to polish off my leftovers. Oh my goodness. I was getting ready to freak out. What's wrong, child? Nana asked, reaching for my hand. I stood from the table, pushing my chair in. Nothing, I mumbled before turning to the sink and submerging my hands in the dishwater. As I washed the dishes, my mind raced. Could it be possible he and I could have a real relationship? I mean, there was no denying the fact that he was dripping fine and had a banging body. And his mind, the way his mind worked, was beginning to have more of an effect on me than his body. Okay, alright, confession time. Ever since I was a young girl, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13, I've had this thing for Malcolm X. Okay, a smart thug, or what people would, call a thug, I call them warriors, have always been something I find very attractive. Malcolm embodied all that for me in those glasses. Let's just say that listening to Kaleb speak a minute ago had roused up some feelings. It was more to him than what I thought. And for the first time, I was considering giving our marriage a try. The only thing that was standing in our way was whether or not he was behind Man's death. I'm going to ask him tonight after we get back from Shlomo's and Stormy's house. As soon as we arrived at their house, Stormy took Eve out of my arms. Eve squealed as she began to kiss her under her fat cheeks. Stormy and Shlomo had only had a son and joked about being denied a daughter. So whenever Eve was around, Storm spoiled her ridiculously.
Hey, Shalom,
Shlomo said as he clasped hands with Kaleb before he took the pan of lasagna I had made from him.
Hey, Shalom, thanks for inviting us over. Man, it ain't no problem. We glad y'all came through.
Nana said to make sure you send her a plate because she knows you got down in that kitchen, I told Storm. She laughed. Girl, you know I did. And of course, I'll make sure Nana has a plate. Y'all come on in and have a seat. Stormy and Shlomo's house was nice. It was big like my Nana's, but that is where all the similarities ended. Where the boarding house was run down and in serious need of repair, Shlomo's and Stormy's house could be featured in the ghetto version of Look at That House. I used to love coming over here to babysit their son Yehuda. They had all the cable channels and kept a fridge full of food. And yeah, Stormy did her thing in the kitchen. She cooked like one of the grandmothers that always had a good pot stewing on their stove. Well, most of the grandmothers. When my Nana should have been learning how to cook, she was dancing. So they pretty much left me to learn how to cook or us starving. And guess what I had come to learn? You got it. Stormy's house. Monica! Yehuda yelled as he barreled down the stairs and wrapped his little 5-year-old arms around my waist. Hey man, I missed you so much. I kissed his little cheeks and pinched them. He was so handsome. He looked like a miniature version of his father. And he was smart like him too. I sat on one of the love seats and was secretly thrilled when Kaleb sat next to me. Now, I know that sounds goofy, but now there was a chance that he had not killed my brother and he and I could actually be together. I was experiencing all those little corny relationships first with a new heart. Like, this was the first time we visited a friend's house and sat right underneath each other like a couple. Yay! Stormy brought a tray of sandwiches out, and Shlomo, who was just sitting in what Stormy and I called Shlomo's old man chair, saw her and jumped back to his feet.
Here, baby, let me get that for you. You know Sophia Yah said you can't be lifting heavy stuff in your condition.
My hand froze from where I was taking Eve's sippy cup out of her diaper bag. Your condition? Eve, who was sitting on her dad's lap waiting for her cup, whined to let me know I need to get my hand moving. I handed her the cup, but I never took my eyes off Storm. She smiled at me and put her hand on her stomach. Oh my goodness, are you pregnant? Kane. I screamed and jumped up from the couch, running to wrap my arms around her. She and I both did a little happy dance. How far along are you? I asked, putting my hand on her still flat stomach. Only about 3 months. That is great. I hugged Shlomo. I'm proud of you, man. I thought you were too old to still have kids. He narrowed his eyes at me, and with a smirk on my face, I blinked innocently at him.
Yeah, I got your old.
He threw back at me before he reached up and ruthlessly ruffled my hair. I screeched, Shlomo, take it! You messed up my hair! And he did too. When I turned back to look at Kaleb, he was trying not to laugh while indicating that my bun that I had spent dang near all morning trying to put up was hanging off to the left. Shut up, I huffed as I sat back down next to him. That caused him to chuckle more. We had a really nice time. And believe it or not, I learned some more things about my husband that left me speechless. My first surprise had been before we had even come in the house. When we had got out his truck and he went to the trunk to take out the pan of lasagna, he also pulled out a book bag that actually looked used. Is that yours? I asked as we walked upstairs. He looked down at me as if my question was strange.
Yeah? Why do you ask?
I shrugged. It ain't every day you see a mob boss with a book bag. I mean, we know you street smarts, but book smart? I scrunched up my face a bit and shook my head. He came to a stop, looking down at me as if I had just insulted him. I held my head back and laughed as I continued up the stairs without him. Now, my second surprise came when he and Shlomo got to talking scriptures. And he actually opened his book bag and pulled out a Bible and a notepad. And get this, both had been well used. You have a Bible? I asked, sitting a bottle of water on the coaster next to him. He picked up the bottle and opened it. The whole time he was giving me a look as if I was once again asking him a strange question.
Yeah, why you ask?
He said before he drank half the bottle down in one gulp. I shrugged my shoulder. I don't know. It ain't every day you see a mob boss carrying around a Bible. That made Shlomo, who was sitting on the other side of the table with his Bible and notebook, chuckle. Now, I like to say that was the last time my husband completely floored me, but it wasn't. So, after the sun had gone down and Shlomo and Kaleb had put up their Bibles, Stormy and I had gone into the living room in the middle of them arguing whose alma mater was the best. Close your mouth, dear, Stormy said, putting her finger underneath my chin. As I snapped my mouth closed, I looked at her completely taken back by the deja vu moment. But I couldn't focus on that. Hearing him speak of his fellow alumni left me floored once again. You're a college graduate? I asked as I sat down next to him on the couch. Shlomo, once again, just shook his head, chuckling. Later that night, I laid in my bed. In my hand was one of the bracelets he had given me on our wedding day. Gently, I traced his name with my finger as I played all the things I had learned about him today over again in my head. He actually had a Bible, one that he read. He had a notepad with questions he had written down to ask Shlomo.
Yeah, man. I was reading here in Numbers chapter 31, verses 16.
He said,
And it said that Balaam had showed the Moabites how to weaken the children of Israel by causing them to act treacherously against Yah. And then in Revelation chapter 2, verse 14, it said that there are some among you who hold to the teachings of Balaam, who taught Balak to entice the Israelites to sin, so that they ate food sacrificed to idols and committed sexual immorality. What does that mean?
Shlomo looked surprised at first.
Whoa, you eating up these scriptures, brother? That is an upperclassman question.
Kaleb chuckled, nodding his head as if to modestly say that's because he was an upperclassman.
One of our biggest enemies is the tribe of Edom.
Kaleb frowned.
You mean was?
Shlomo shook his head. No,
I mean is. How is that possible? The blood remembers.
Kaleb nodded his head, understanding him. I was amazed because I was completely lost. I had no idea what they were talking about. Who is Edom? And how were they our enemies today? Goodness, I felt left out. I didn't like the feeling either.
Balaam was a great wizard. So great that he knew and understood where the true power lies. He was never fooled. But like Shaitan himself, he felt slighted and chose to seek vengeance against Yah's chosen. In that day, they could not stop our people. Word has spread over the whole earth about us. We were feared everywhere we went, and nobody could figure out why we were so powerful. It was Balaam who showed our enemy how to weaken us, and it's the very thing that is still implemented today to keep us separated from Yah.
Kaleb nodded his head, taking in the information that Shlomo was giving him, understanding what to me sounded like a riddle. And I looked up at Stormy, and she jerked her head in a way to tell me to meet her in the kitchen. I excused myself from the intense study session, but I doubt if they even noticed. So focused were they on each other. What is all that about? I asked as soon as I walked through the door. Who the hell did I marry? Shh! She grabbed my shoulders, looked me directly in the eye. Okay, I have to tell you something, but you have to promise me you're not gonna freak out. I inhaled. I could tell by her gaze that she was getting ready to rock my world, but I braced myself and I nodded. You are the wife of a very special man. I shook my head at Stormy. Storm, I'm surprised at you. I would expect the girls in my dance class to be impressed with a drug kingpin, but not you. I shook my head again. She shook my shoulders. Girl, forget that. Being a kingpin is nothing. Shlomo told me that Yah has chosen Kaleb to be one of his warriors. I blinked at her. She said that like I was supposed to understand what the heck that meant. Stormy, can you simplify that just a bit? I didn't mean to snap at her, but I was being introduced to a side of Kaleb that I had no idea existed. I knew he was a mob boss, but he actually had a brain in the head of his, a very impressive one at that. The intensity in which he and Shlomo were studying was blowing my mind away. I have never seen anyone study scriptures like that. They sat facing each other, their heads only feet apart. It was like Shlomo was a crash course and Kaleb was a sponge. No, a vacuum sucking it up. He has been chosen to fight in a very special battle. I started to get a weird feeling. Battle? What kind of battle? She looked at me for a while before she spoke again. I'm speaking of the Exodus. I opened my mouth to ask her what the Exodus was, but she shook her head, cutting me off. Some things are not as simple as to tell someone. I can't tell you what the Exodus is, because you won't understand. She pointed towards the living room. But your man knows, and he understands more than you can imagine. So if I were you, I would stop being stubborn and learn all I can from him, because we are running out of time. I was speechless. How could she say that about me? I'm not stubborn. She just didn't know Kaleb. Not like I did. Really, Monica? After all the surprises you got today, you can say that? Really? Soon, Shlomo's gonna take him to meet Lion. Lion? I asked, wondering if I had heard her wrong. She nodded. Lion, little sister. Okay. I eased down into a chair at her table. She sat down across from me with a worried look on her face. What does that mean? I was so confused. Lion is a legend. He's the man everybody lied and said they knew. I had seen him only once. He had come into the center to see Shlomo, and I stood there like a straight up groupie, in shock, staring at him. He walked past me and chuckled at the spectacle I was making of myself. Shlomo is taking Kaleb to be trained by Lion, Stormy said, breaking through my memory. My mouth dropped again. That was huge. Are you kidding me? Kaleb? What? How? I couldn't even get my thoughts out clearly. She shrugged. It's Yah's will. I put my hand to my mouth as the fullness of what this meant settled in. Lion is not only a legend, he's a folklore. There were rumors going around that he wasn't even human. Some people say he's an avenging angel that had chosen to live on Earth, and not just any place on Earth, but the ghetto. And that the government had been trying to kill him, but every time they get close, something bad happens to him. It says he's protected by Yah himself. Now, I don't know how much of that is true, but I do know that nobody gets close to him unless he invites them. Word around town is that he's the best MMA fighter in the world, and fighters from all over wanted to get into the Lion's Den to be trained by him. Famous men that were already title holders. But again, only ones that he invites in are allowed. And most of the time, it's not those who are famous, but men that nobody ever heard of. Now, that was what the outside world knew about him. But because I was so close to Stormy and Shlomo, I had managed to get a glimpse on the inside workings of the Lion's Den. Although technically I had never been there, still, I had overheard Stormy and Shlomo talking many times about some of the things that goes on there. When I was a little girl, I overheard them talking about some damage he had done to some cars with just his fists while he was chasing after his wife, who at the time had been trying to leave him. Shlomo said his father, Shlomo Sr., who is no longer with us, who at the time was an attorney, had a tough time getting the city off their backs about the incident. They ended up paying the city a whole lot of money to make them just go away. Now, I don't know if Lion is really an avenging angel, but I do know there is something different about him. He's not an ordinary man. And there is something different about his son Dawid too. And not to mention Gideon. Gideon, the black Spanish speaking man, he is, yeah. And his son, oh my goodness, his son, how could I forget? He is dangerously handsome with white hair. Heck, there was something different about that whole Lion's Den crew. And now Shlomo was taking Kaleb over there? So did that mean there was something different about Kaleb? Once again, I had the strongest feeling that everything I thought I knew about my husband was wrong. And as if to prove that point, we heard the furniture being moved. We went back into the living room just in time to see Shlomo hand Kaleb a sword. I think this is when my biggest shock of the evening came, because he began to work that sword like Bruce Lee. Shocked, I looked at Stormy, who gave me that I told you so smirk. Goodness, it had all been a bit too much. And as I lay here in my bed, I couldn't help but feel left out. Kaleb's destiny was to be a warrior for Yah and fight in the Exodus. What the world did that mean? I didn't know. Stormy says some things could not be explained, only learned. She also said that Kaleb could teach me, and I wanted to know. With my mind made up, I got up off my bed and placed my bracelets back on the dresser. Quietly, I walked to my door that I didn't bother to close, and I saw that Kaleb's light was still on in his bedroom. He had not closed his door either. Suddenly, I felt a little nervous. Kingpin Kaleb had been intimidating. Warrior of Yah Kaleb almost felt untouchable. I tiptoed across the hall and peeked my head in his door. Oh, Yah, I nearly drooled on myself. He was laying shirtless in his bed with only a pair of basketball shorts on, reading his scriptures. Lying next to him on the bed was his notepad. And get this, on his face was a pair of glasses. Glasses, y'all! He looked up at me and smiled, and I nearly turned into a puddle of pudding right where I stood.
Hey, you,
he said as he finished writing something. Hey. I stepped on in the room. I didn't know what to say, so I opened my mouth and proved how big of a dork I was. I didn't know you wore glasses. I could have kicked myself. Smooth, Monica. He took them off, placing them on the bed, before he put his powerful arms behind his head, causing his chest and stomach to flex beautifully.
Only for reading.
His deep, relaxed voice was playing havoc on my girly parts. I nodded as I looked around his room that I knew like the back of my hand, as if this was my first time being here. Then my eyes fell on his book bag that was also on the bed, and then his laptop that sat next to him, then back up to the old flower painting on the wall.
You want to sit down?
I grinned real big at him, relieved he put me out of my misery. Sure, if you insist. He chuckled as I climbed up on his bed and sat with my legs folded at the foot of it, facing him. There were so many things I wanted to ask him, but I didn't know where to begin. So, what you reading? I gestured towards his Bible.
I'm reading about Yah's Sabbath days. I feel kind of bad that I had second thoughts about going to work today.
Oh yeah? What did you find out? He paused for just a moment, looking off towards the side.
I think from this moment on, the shop will be closed on Saturdays.
Really? I thought you said that was your busiest day. He nodded.
It is, but the fact is, it's a sin to work on the Sabbath day.
But you didn't work.
Yeah, but I still make money because others worked for me. That counts.
I nodded, picking up his Bible, opening it. It said that in here?
Yep.
He chuckled.
What does that mean?
He asked, sitting up a bit. I traced where he had jotted some things down in his Bible with my finger. I thought about what Stormy said, about how some things could not be told. They had to be learned. I think I feel left out, I admitted to him.
Why is that?
His deep voice was now calm and soothing. I swallowed. Because I don't have a Bible. He chuckled and reached into his bag.
I got one for you.
He tossed a yellow-skinned Bible to me. It was brand new. I opened it, and sure enough, he had written my name in the inside of it. I looked up at him surprised. Why didn't you tell me? He shrugged.
I figured I'd wait for you to ask me for it.
But what if I never asked?
I was never worried about that. I knew you were going to.
I couldn't help the grin that spread on my face. The fact that he believed that about me made me feel like $1,000,000. Then a thought came to me. There was only one thing left standing between he and I couldn't go any further until I knew. Kaleb?
Yeah?
Can I ask you a question? He smiled.
Sure.
Did you call a hit on my brother? The smile left his face as his eyes searched mine. He looked away before his eyes came back to me.
No, I didn't.